Hey class, in this lesson we're going to start taking a look at tires. At the end of the lesson you'll be able to identify some different types of tires, including different parts and markings on a tire, so that if you were to remove a tire, you'd be able to identify some of the important information located on the tire. Most people think when they have to go buy tires for their car, am I going to spend an arm or a leg or both? Me, I get most of my tires from Town Fair Tire. Few people like buying new tires because they're one of the more expensive maintenance items on a car, so it's important to choose the right ones for your vehicle. This lesson will help you identify some of the parts of a tire so you can be an informed consumer. Automotive tires have two functions. One, they're a soft cushion between the road and the wheel, and two, they provide traction with the road. Tires have to transmit the driving, braking, cornering forces to the road in both good and bad weather. Tires also have to be considerably strong because we don't want them to pop when we're driving down the road. Traction is important, and in a little picture you can actually see what little part of the tire actually contacts the road at one time. Car tires are pneumatic, meaning that they're filled with air. Car tires are also tubeless, meaning they don't have a tube inside the tire. If you look at a bike, most bikes have a tube inside. Tire technology is pretty amazing because it always continues to advance between run-flat tires, 3D printed tires, and actually sound insulation inside the tires of a Tesla. There's a lot to learn about tires. Next, we're going to take a look at some basic parts of the tire. First part we're going to take a look at is called the sidewall. And the sidewall of the tire is the outside of the tire. It's the outer part, and it has all the written information about the tire on the side. Next are the beads. The beads are metal rings that go around the outside of the tire. They're encased in rubber and they fit snugly against the wheel rim. We have the tread, which contacts the grounds. We have belts that are used to strengthen the body of the tire. We have the body plies, which is basically rubberized fabric that are wrapped around the beads, which form the body of the tire. And then we have the liner, which is a waterproof membrane on the inside of the plies, which provides the tire to be leak-proof. This picture gives you a good cross-section of all the tire, rim, and wheel parts working together of a car. You have your tire and the tire treads along the outside of the car. You've got your rim, which we just talked about, that the beads go ahead and seat along the rim. You've got the wheel itself. And you also have the brakes. In this case, you have the brakes. They could be discs or they could be rotors. And then you have your suspension system. So all these parts are working together as the car moves. So take another moment and see how all these parts work together. So the tire of your car is attached to the wheel. The wheel supports the tire, and most wheels are made of either cast aluminum. You also have mag wheels. A standard wheel consists of the rim, which is the lip that contacts the bead of the tire. The center section of the wheel, called the spider, has a little bit of a spider shape. The holes for your lug nuts. And on the side, you have another picture of how all these parts work together on the cross section of your car. Throughout history, tires have been made in some different ways. Most often, the tires that we see today are what are called radial tires. One of the oldest designs is what's called a bias ply tire, where you can see it doesn't use any belts. You also have the belted bias tires, where you have both the belts and the piles running at different angles. The radial tire has both belts and plies, and they're also reinforced with steel, fiberglass, or other materials, so it gives it a stiff tread and a stable footprint to this tire. Here's another look at a radial tire. Most American passenger cars manufactured since the 1980s come standard with radial tires. You can see in the picture They also include a flexible sidewall, a stiff tread, and a stable footprint. Radial tires are good for safety, cornering, braking, and wear. The part of the tire that's going to give you the most information about your tire is the sidewall. And here's a sidewall of a Goodyear tire, and it points out to some of the important information you'll see on the side of a tire. If you go to buy new tires for your car, you will need some of the information that you see on this tire. Information on this tire will tell you the brand name. It'll also tell you the model of the tire. The tire will tell you its maximum inflation pressure. However, to decide how much air to put in your tire, you shouldn't look at the tire. You should look at the label on the door of your car or in the owner's manual. The sidewall will tell you whether or not the tire can be used for mud and snow. It'll tell you the size of the tire beginning with the letter P. It will also give you what's called a load index and also a speed rating. Again, there's lots of information to be aware of on the side of the tire, which is useful when you're going to buy yourself new tires or even buy yourself tires online. When measuring a tire, there's a lot of measurements to be aware of, and this graphic here shows you some of the different measurements to be aware of: the overall diameter, the width of the rim, or the section height. The sidewall of your tire will tell you what size your tire is using what's called a P metric size designation. It's a way to identify the tire, and they use metric values to find the size. So when you look at a tire, you might see P 155/80 R13. What does that mean? Well, the P in this instance means P, it's for a passenger car. It gives you the section width in millimeters. In this case, it's 155. What's your section width? Well, the graphic up here tells you. Also, the 80. What does the 80 mean? Well, that's your height to width ratio. The ratio or relationship between the height of the tire and the width of the tire. The R will tell you what type of construction is the tire. Is it a radial, a bias belted? In this case, it's an R for a radial tire. And lastly, the 13 will tell you the rim or wheel diameter in inches. So again, when you're buying tires, finding that P metric information is an important first step in determining the right size tires that you need for your car. We could spend a whole semester learning about tires and different tire designations and tire technology, but I want you to understand some different terms that you'll hear when we take a look at tires. You have what are called asymmetrical tires, directional tires, and symmetrical tires. Take a look at the treads in the graphic below. Can you see some of the differences between the tire treads? An asymmetrical tire will have a different tread pattern on the inside of the tire and a different tread pattern on the outside of the tire. The tire will actually be labeled outside to tell you which way the tire should be mounted on the wheel. These designs are there to improve traction on wet surfaces, so it's important to make sure it goes on the right side of the wheel. Directional tires are high performance tires and are designed to minimize hydroplaning, which is where you lose control because there's water on the surface of the road. Directional tires will have an arrow on the sidewall that will tell you rotation so that you know which direction the wheels should spin when you mount it on the wheel, and making sure that the tire rotates properly when the tire is going forward. Some other tires to be aware of are a spare tire. Hopefully you've got a spare tire in the trunk of your car. Sometimes people call it a donut. You might notice that it's a lot smaller and requires a lot more air pressure to fill. They also have this new technology called run flat tires. A run flat tire has some special rubber compound and some thick rubber sidewall support so that if you drove over a nail, you'd be able to drive to the tire repair shop and get your tire changed before the tire goes ahead and gets flat. You also have these things called self-sealing tires. With self-sealing tires, there's a special soft compound that will go into the hole to stop air leakage if you were to, again, drive over a nail. There's also high pressure spares, full-size spare tires, lightweight spare tires, truck tires, retreads. Again, there's a lot to learn when it comes to tires. The goal for this lesson was just to have you identify some of the basic tire parts and types and markings that you'd find on a tire, like the sidewall and the rim and the treads and the belts. In class, we'd be able to remove a tire and identify some of the important tire markings that you would see so you can identify a tire in case you want to buy a new one or buy a new one online. I've got a couple additional videos that I'm going to have you watch that'll tell you more about the science and technology of tires.